I watched them laugh as they tore up my direct orders, called me just another pencil pusher who didn't understand real military work. Their smirks turned to pure terror when they discovered the truth about who I really was. Some lessons you only learn once. If you love stories about instant karma and people getting exactly what they deserve, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Hit that like button right now because this story will blow your mind. And don't forget to subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Let me take you back to 3 months ago, when everything in my life changed in ways I never could have imagined. I had just received the promotion of a lifetime. Colonel, the highest-ranking position at Blackstone Military Base, 22 years of service, countless deployments, and finally, I had made it to the top. But here's the thing about reaching the summit. Sometimes the view from up there shows you things you wish you couldn't see. My superiors had been receiving troubling reports about discipline issues at the base, nothing concrete enough for formal charges, but whispers of insubordination, safety protocol violations, and a general breakdown in respect for chain of command. The previous commander had been, let's say, too friendly with certain soldiers. When they brought me in, they made it clear I needed to identify the problems and fix them fast. That's when General Morrison pulled me aside with an unusual request. He wanted me to go undercover for 2 weeks before officially taking command, dress down, blend in with the administrative staff, and observe the base operations from the ground level. Get a real picture of what was happening when nobody thought the boss was watching. The idea terrified and excited me in equal measure. I'd spent my entire career climbing the ranks, building respect through achievement and leadership. Now I was about to strip all of that away and start from zero. So there I was on a Monday morning, walking through those gates dressed as Specialist Torres, a simple administrative clerk transferred from another base. Gone were my officer's stripes, my years of decorated service, my hard-earned authority. In their place was a plain uniform, minimal rank insignia, and a clipboard full of mundane paperwork. I had transformed from a commanding officer into exactly the kind of person I used to protect from workplace bullies. The administrative building became my temporary home, a small office tucked away where I could watch the daily operations unfold. From my desk by the window, I had a perfect view of the main courtyard where soldiers gathered between duties. It didn't take long to spot the problem. Lieutenant Rodriguez commanded attention wherever he went, but not the good kind. He was loud, dismissive, and seemed to take particular pleasure in putting down anyone he perceived as beneath him. Sergeant Collins followed him around like a loyal dog, amplifying Rodriguez's worst behaviors and adding his own cruel commentary. Then there was Private Johnson, younger than the others, who clearly wanted to fit in but looked uncomfortable with their methods. Watching them interact with other soldiers made my stomach turn. They had created their own little kingdom within the base, and anyone who challenged their authority became a target. I spent those first few days taking notes, documenting incidents, and feeling a growing sense of dread. This wasn't just about discipline problems or minor insubordination. These men were creating a toxic environment that could compromise mission effectiveness and put lives at risk. But I also felt something else stirring inside me, a determination to see just how far they would go when faced with someone they thought couldn't fight back. Little did they know, they were about to meet their match in the most unexpected way possible. My first real encounter with Rodriguez happened on day 3. I was reviewing equipment maintenance logs when I noticed several critical safety inspections had been marked as complete without proper documentation. The helicopter maintenance bay was my first stop, and that's where I found them. Rodriguez was supervising a routine engine inspection, but his crew was cutting corners everywhere. Safety harnesses hung unused, proper tools were scattered carelessly, and the checklist procedure was being completely ignored. As Torres, I had every right to flag these violations. Taking a deep breath, I approached with my clipboard in hand. "Excuse me, Lieutenant," I said, keeping my voice steady and professional. "I'm seeing some discrepancies in the safety protocols here. According to Regulation 47-12, all personnel should be wearing proper safety equipment during engine inspections." Rodriguez barely glanced at me. When he did turn around, his expression was pure condescension. "And you are?" he asked, looking me up and down like I was something he'd scraped off his boot. Specialist Torres, sir. I'm reviewing maintenance compliance for the quarterly report. The laugh that came out of his mouth made my blood run cold. Oh, a paper pusher. How wonderful. He turned to Collins, who was watching with obvious amusement. Looks like they sent us a real expert, Sergeant. Someone who's probably never touched a real piece of equipment in her entire career. Stay in your lane, Torres, Collins added with a smirk. We've been doing this job since before you knew what a wrench was. I felt heat rising in my cheeks, but I pressed on. Sir, these protocols exist for a reason. If someone gets hurt because proper procedures weren't followed. Are you questioning my competence, specialist? Rodriguez stepped closer, using his height to intimidate me. Because it sounds like you're questioning my competence. The entire maintenance bay had gone quiet. Other soldiers were watching, some looking uncomfortable, others clearly enjoying the show. I swallowed my pride and backed down. For now. No, sir, I'm just doing my job. But Rodriguez wasn't done. Over the next few days, it got worse. Much worse. The breaking point came when I drafted a set of official orders, legitimate ones, using my actual authority as incoming commander. I needed to test just how far their insubordination would go. The orders were simple. Immediate comprehensive equipment inspection to be completed within 24 hours. I signed them with my real signature and hand-delivered them to Rodriguez during the afternoon briefing. He took the papers from me with barely a glance. What's this supposed to be? Orders from command, sir. Priority 1 equipment inspection, effective immediately. Rodriguez scanned the document, his expression growing more dismissive by the second. Some desk jockey thinks they can tell us how to do our job. He looked around the room at his crew, making sure he had an audience. Collins, get a load of this. Office Mouse here thinks she's giving us orders. Office Mouse. The nickname hit me like a physical blow, but what happened next was even worse. Without breaking eye contact with me, Rodriguez slowly and deliberately tore the orders in half, then in half again. The pieces fluttered to the floor like confetti, and the sound of his crew's laughter filled the room. There's your priority 1 inspection, Torres. Hope that quarterly report works out for you. I stood there, frozen in shock and rage, staring at the shredded remains of direct orders from their commanding officers scattered on the concrete floor. Every instinct screamed at me to reveal who I really was, to put this arrogant fool in his place immediately. But I had to see how deep this corruption ran. The humiliation burned in my chest as I knelt to collect the torn pieces, their laughter echoing around me. Rodriguez had just committed a court-martial offense, and he had no idea what was coming for him. By the end of week 2, I had everything I needed. Documentation, witness statements, recorded incidents. Rodriguez and his crew had handed me enough evidence to end their careers 10 times over, but the final straw came when I discovered a critical hydraulic leak in one of our transport helicopters that they had signed off as operational without actually inspecting. People could die from that kind of negligence. The time for games was over. I made the call to my adjutant from my real office, the one Rodriguez had never seen. Schedule an immediate base-wide assembly, full dress uniform, mandatory attendance, and make sure someone gets good footage. Command will want to see this. 20 minutes later, the alarm sounded. Emergency assembly calls always created tension, but I could see Rodriguez's crew joking around as they walked toward the main hall. Collins was actually laughing about something, probably making another crack about the office mouse who'd been bothering them for 2 weeks. If only they knew what was waiting for them. I took my time getting ready, savoring each moment as I put on my real uniform, the polished brass, the ribbons representing years of service, the colonel's eagles that I'd earned through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the woman I truly was, not the meek administrator they'd been tormenting, but a decorated officer with the authority to change their lives forever. The walk to the assembly hall felt like a victory march. My aide had everything prepared perfectly. The podium was set, the microphone tested, and every single soldier on base was waiting in formation. I could see Rodriguez near the front, still oblivious, checking his watch like this was just another boring, mandatory meeting. The base announcer's voice boomed across the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting your new commanding officer, Colonel Victoria Hayes. I stepped out from behind the curtain in full dress uniform, my heels clicking against the polished floor with military precision. The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear a pin drop in that massive room. I walked to the podium slowly, deliberately, letting every person in that hall get a good look at exactly who I was. Then I smiled. Not the nervous, apologetic smile of Specialist Torres, but the confident smile of a woman who held their careers in her hands. "Good afternoon," I said, my voice carrying easily across the room. "Some of you may know me as Specialist Torres from the administrative office. I've spent the last 2 weeks getting to know this base and its personnel very well." I found Rodriguez in the crowd. His face had gone completely white, his mouth hanging open like a fish gasping for air. Collins looked like he might be sick. Even Johnson seemed to understand the magnitude of what had just happened. During my time as Torres, I've observed some very interesting behaviors that I documented thoroughly. I held up a thick folder, letting it drop onto the podium with a satisfying thud. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, would you please step forward?" He didn't move. Couldn't move. I watched him struggle with the reality crashing down around him, his eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape route that didn't exist. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," I repeated, my voice carrying the unmistakable tone of command. "Step forward. Now." He stumbled forward on unsteady legs, his swagger completely gone. When he reached the front, I could see sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air in the hall. "Do you recognize this?" I held up the torn pieces of the orders he'd destroyed, carefully preserved in a clear evidence bag. "These were direct orders from your commanding officer. Orders that you tore up and threw on the floor while your subordinates laughed." The reckoning had begun. Rodriguez stood before me, trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. The arrogant bully who had tormented me for 2 weeks was gone, replaced by a broken man who finally understood the gravity of his situation. But I wasn't done with him yet. Not even close. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," I said, my voice carrying across the silent hall, "in the past 14 days, you have committed 17 separate violations of military code: insubordination, destruction of official orders, safety protocol violations, and conduct unbecoming an officer." I opened the folder and began reading. "On Tuesday, October 3rd, you physically prevented a superior officer from performing her duties. On Friday, October 6th, you deliberately ignored direct orders regarding equipment inspection, putting lives at risk." His mouth opened and closed like he was trying to speak, but no words came out. Finally, he managed to stammer, "Ma'am, I didn't know. If I had known who you were?" That's when I felt something snap inside me. I stepped down from the podium and walked directly to him, close enough that only he could hear my words. "So you're saying you would have treated me with respect only if you knew I outranked you? What about basic human decency, Rodriguez? What about treating every soldier with dignity, regardless of their position?" The entire base watched in absolute silence as I destroyed him piece by piece. "Your behavior wasn't just unprofessional, it was dangerous. That helicopter you signed off on without inspection, the one with the critical hydraulic leak, if that bird had gone up with a full crew, we could have lost 8 good soldiers because of your negligence." I turned to address the entire assembly. "Let this be a lesson to every single person in this room. Respect isn't earned by the rank on your collar or the power you wield over others. It's earned by how you treat every person you encounter, especially those who can't fight back." Looking back at Rodriguez, I delivered the final blow. "Effective immediately, you are stripped of your rank and will face court-martial proceedings. Sergeant Collins, you are hereby demoted to private and will be transferred to another base. Your behavior as an enabler is almost as disgraceful as his." Collins looked like he might faint, but I wasn't finished. "Private Johnson," I called out. The young soldier stepped forward, visibly shaking. "Your participation was reluctant, and several witnesses have testified that you often looked uncomfortable with their actions. You will receive formal counseling and remain on probation, but you have a chance to learn from this and become the soldier I believe you can be." The transformation in the room was immediate and electric. I could see it in their faces. A new understanding, a shift in the very atmosphere of the base. These soldiers weren't just watching punishment being delivered, they were witnessing what real leadership looked like. Over the following weeks, everything changed. The same soldiers who had watched Rodriguez humiliate me now approached with genuine respect and professionalism. Not because they feared my rank, but because they had seen who I truly was when I thought no one important was watching. They had witnessed integrity in action. Rodriguez was court-martialed and dishonorably discharged. Collins was transferred and never promoted again. Johnson, true to my faith in him, became one of our most reliable soldiers and eventually earned back his full rank. But the real victory wasn't in their punishment, it was in what happened next. Our base became a model of professionalism and mutual respect. Soldiers looked out for each other regardless of rank, safety protocols were followed religiously, and everyone understood that leadership meant serving others, not ruling over them. You never know who you're really talking to. Rodriguez learned that lesson the hard way, but sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that matter most. If this story gave you chills and made you cheer for justice, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what you would have done in my situation. Have you ever had to deal with someone who completely underestimated you? Share your story below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell because karma stories like this are exactly what we specialize in here.